Oh hey, it's Emily, and I am finally getting a chance to film my December wrap-up. And I'm hoping to film a lot while I'm at the tiny house and I just have a good moment to film. So I'm going to be filming quite a few videos, so you'll probably see this for quite a few videos, this angle, this setup. Anyway. But I had a really good reading month in December. I also do have vlogs for everything I read in December, so I'll be sure to link all of those below if you want more details. So I'll be kind of brief just to make sure that I can keep this to a decent length. And as I said, there are more thoughts in all of those vlogs. So if you want to find more thoughts on these books, then check out those vlogs. But the first thing I finished in the month of December was A Reaper at the Gates by Sabbath Tahir. This is the third book in the Ember and the Ashes series. And the fourth one had just come out, so I had wanted to read the third one to get caught up in the series and then be able to read the fourth one. And I freaking love this series. I really adored Reaper at the Gates. I think the world opened up so much in this book. So this world, this series follows a couple of main characters, and there's the Empire and the Scholars. So the Empire is in charge. Scholars have been oppressed. Laya is a scholar. Some family members have been killed. Her brother was kidnapped and imprisoned by the Empire. And you also follow Elias, whose mother runs a military training academy for the Empire. He's at this military training academy being trained as a soldier. And he doesn't exactly agree with everything that's going on and doesn't agree necessarily with what the Empire is doing. And so yeah, so that's kind of the basic setup, and Laya wants to get her brother out of prison, so she goes to the rebellion for help, and they agree to help her if she will go undercover for the rebellion at this military training academy. They meet, and they, ultimately try to, it goes from there. They try to help help the world, essentially. And it's such a fun series, and it opens up so much. Starting in the second one, but really in the third one, the world just opens up a ton, and there's magic that really comes into play. There are different groups of people. There are Jinn, there are Ifrits, and magic and souls that can't necessarily get to where they're supposed to be going. So there's kind of these souls that are running rampant because they can't cross over. And anyway, there's just a whole bunch of stuff going on as this series really opens up, and it really comes down to different groups fighting for control, different groups trying to get justice, and it's just such a fun, cool series. I really love this series a lot. Would highly recommend. So I next attempted to listen to and DNF'd, for now, Dune by Frank Herbert, and I think it's just I need to physically read this one while I'm listening to the audio. I think I'm really going to enjoy this story. I just need to do it other than only through the audio. There was just a lot going on. There's a lot of world building at the very beginning, and I just not enough was sticking for me to enjoy the story the way I know I potentially could if I was physically reading while listening, or maybe just physically reading, who knows. So I'm going to try that one again later. I then read Never Good Enough by Monica Ramirez Bosco, and I definitely struggle with perfectionism. And so this is a nonfiction about perfectionism and some ways to potentially help you get through some of those thought processes, help identify false narratives and false beliefs that you might have about yourself or other people, and kind of help work through those. So if you do struggle with perfectionism, would highly recommend. There were some really interesting activities that she recommends that you do, and some different examples that she gives, and I think it was a really helpful book, and I definitely want to go back and do some of those activities and see if they can help. So would recommend if you struggle with perfectionism. I next read Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. This is a really entertaining, fun YA fantasy. This one follows Amelia, who her sister was murdered. It actually follows two sisters, Amelia and Vittoria, but Vittoria is killed pretty early on, and her sister is trying to bring her sister's killer to justice, and dark princes become involved, and there's a whole lot going on. Her family are witches, and she comes from a line of witches, and those families have definitely come under attack, and there are a series of murders going on that her sister was kind of caught up in. And so they're trying to figure out what's going on. Her family is basically trying to hide the fact that they're witches or have magic. And again, she calls on a dark prince, and ultimately he also wants to figure out what's going on with these murders for various reasons. And yeah, it's just entertaining. I don't think it's gonna be, anything that super sticks with me necessarily, but it was just like a fun, entertaining world. The writing was really addicting, and it follows a vaguely historical Italian setting. Her family also runs a restaurant, which was a lot of fun, and I just had a good time with it. Nothing particularly special for me, but I did have a lot of fun with it, and I am excited to see what happens in the next book. So the next book I finished is Fable by Adrienne Young. I enjoyed this one even more than I thought I would. So this one follows Fable, and her family used to live and work on ships, and her mother was killed in an accident, and her father and someone else on the ship essentially abandons her on an island, and then goes away and basically says, if you can survive, then come find me and you'll be able to take your rightful place. And she gathers that to mean that she'll be able to take her place in his empire. So her father has kind of become this really, really powerful trader, sea trader. And so but he abandoned her on this island. So it's 4 years after that happened. She has survived and dredges pyre in order to make enough money so that she can get passage to a port city to go find him. And so she, eventually is able to get enough money and is able to get passage to this port city. So it's her adventure getting there, her adventure finding her father, and all of the stuff that happens after that. And this book was just so entertaining. It was so much fun. I read it physically while listening to the audiobook, and the narrator was a lot of fun too. But this one was it was pretty fast paced, and I still really enjoyed the characters though, but it was pretty fast paced and just entertaining. And Fable is just this fun, feisty character, and who is a survivor. She's had to survive her entire life, and so she doesn't trust people very easily, understandably. And anyway, I just had a fantastic time reading this one, and I'm so anxious for the next one because I want to figure out what happens next. I'm so excited. This one has been one of my favorite fairy lutes that I've read this year. And the next book I read was Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This is another one that I enjoyed so much this year. So this one follows two sisters. The older sister is supposed to enter into this political marriage, and the younger sister is kind of the one that doesn't really serve a purpose for the family. She just kind of is the wild child that does whatever she wants. And so at the last minute though, her father decides that this younger daughter is going to enter into this political marriage instead of the older one. And they want this political marriage to happen to help prevent war. And so the younger sister is kind of thrust into this life that she doesn't know. Her older sister had been training for this her entire life. And so she's thrust into this political marriage, and she has no idea what's going on. She doesn't know the people that she's about to be amongst. She doesn't know anything about the person she's about to be marrying. She doesn't know anything about court life or court politics. And so she's just trying to survive, figure out what's going on, and her sister is trying to figure out what she can do to rescue her sister. And so she goes and figures out that things are a lot more complicated than she thought. So she's trying to figure out what's going on as well, and realizes that her training maybe really didn't prepare her for everything that's happening. It's such a fun story. It's so funny. You also follow, so there's the head god, but you also follow some of the other gods in this court, and one of them is just absolutely hysterical. And it's such a funny book. It's such an entertaining book. There are so many twists and turns, and I loved all of the perspectives in this book. I loved all of them, and so I was just entertained by all of the different perspectives that he was using to tell this story. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I also loved the audiobook. That was how I read this one. Anyway, loved it. I next read The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna, and this one, it was really, really interesting. It is an African-inspired YA fantasy, and it follows Dika, who, in this society, they need to go through this blood purity ritual. If they bleed red, then they're normal and can stay in society. If they bleed gold, then they're ostracized. And of course she bleeds gold because, you know, of course. And so she's given a choice. She can either basically suffer her fate in this community, or she can go to a newly formed military force that the Emperor has put together, and if you bleed gold, you kind of have certain magical abilities, I guess, is also a key part of this. And so the Emperor is forming a military force with some of these women who have bled gold and have these magical abilities because he wants to help contain a threat to the Empire. And so Dika joins this military force and realizes that she's even more powerful than she realizes. She realizes there's a lot going on that she didn't realize. And so she's trying to figure out what to do. She's trying to figure out what her place is in this world. I really, really overall enjoyed it. There's some brutal stuff that goes on in this book, but the writing, it felt very weird to have such brutal things going on paired with writing that felt like it was geared towards a younger YA audience or a younger YA audience. So the writing was geared towards a younger audience than I typically enjoy reading from, but there was still something I found super intriguing about this world. There were a few things every now and again that didn't quite make sense, but overall I had such a fun time reading this one. I really would love an adult version of this story. But overall I had a good time with this one. I next read The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. Absolutely love this. I listened to the audiobook. Robin Miles is a genius narrator, and this one you follow a few different perspectives. Overall, the story of the world is that there are seasons where there are these apocalyptic events that go on, and Earth, in terms of the Earth, apocalyptic events, so like earthquakes, tectonic plates are constantly shifting. There are tsunamis that happen as a result, volcanoes are erupting, that kind of thing. And so people basically are just trying to survive these seasons. And you follow a few perspectives. You follow a girl who is coming into her powers. So certain people in this world are origins, and they have magical powers. They have the ability to kind of help control these apocalyptic events. But they're also very feared because their power can also be used to create some of these same events. So like they can help control tremors of the earth, but they can also cause them, for example. And so if they don't have good control over their magic, bad things can happen. And so you follow a little girl who is realizing that she has these powers. She's coming into her power, but she doesn't really understand it. And she is taken to a school where they help train people with these magical abilities or with these powers. You also follow, and that school is the Fulcrum. You follow, and there's an organization surrounding this school and origins. And you also follow a woman who works for the Fulcrum and is going around trying to help control she is an origin as well. You follow her trying to help control different things that are going on, in different parts of this world. So she's traveling around and helping control different things, different tremors, etc. in this world, and going around kind of learning more about a mysterious obelisk as well that is a vague part of this world that isn't really explained yet, but she's starting to discover some more things about this obelisk and some more things about this world in general. You also follow a mother whose son was killed and daughter was kidnapped by her husband. So she is trying to find her husband. She picks up a couple of people along the way, and so you also travel through the world through her trying to find her husband. It's very hard to kind of describe plot-wise this book, but this book is so good. I got sucked. Once I was into the book, it took me a minute to get into it, but once I was into it, I was hooked. I was sucked in. It was just fascinating. The writing was amazing. The characters were super intriguing. I just wanted to know what was going to be happening the entire time. And I'm very excited to continue on in this series. The mother's perspective that I was talking about is actually written in second person. It's a really interesting choice, but I absolutely loved this book and I'm excited to continue. So the last thing that I read in the month of December was Star Daughter by Shveta Thakrar. And this one follows Sheetal, and Sheetal is a half star. And she is living kind of a normal life on Earth, trying, or at least as normal as she can, being a half star. She's starting to hear the star's song, and she doesn't really know what that means, but she feels called to the stars. And her mother went back to the stars when she was a kid, so she kind of feels abandoned by her mother. And she's starting to hear this star song. Her dad actually ends up getting sick, getting injured, and but through star magic, or through star power is how he got injured. And so she needs full-blooded star blood in order to help him heal, so her half-star blood isn't going to be enough. So she ends up going to the stars to find her mother to see if she can get a drop of her blood to help her father heal. And her family kind of reacts in a strange way. They need her to enter a competition, and they say if you enter into this competition, we'll give you the blood that you need and you can go help your father. And the competition happens in the Star Court. This competition happens every time the head family, so they're all different families in the Star Court, if the head family either dies, or the leaders of the head family, if they die or if they don't want to be in power anymore, then there's a competition to see who controls this Star Court. And so different families can enter a contestant into this competition to see who will be the next leader of the Star Court. So they enter Sheetal, or they want to enter Sheetal into this competition. And so it follows their way through this competition. There's a bunch of personal stuff going on with her. She's just basically trying to figure out where she belongs. She had never really interacted with the half-star part of her and never really met her star family. She'd always tried to suppress that part of her. And so she's trying to figure out who she is, what her place is. And again, there are a few parts of this that seemed a little confusing to me or weren't well explained, I think. But the writing was astoundingly gorgeous. Really reminded me of Laini Taylor. I absolutely loved the writing. It was just so wonderful, ethereal, mystical. I loved the Star Court, and I really want an adult fantasy set in this Star Court. I think that would be so much fun. But overall, I had a blast reading this one. I also read physically while listening to the audiobook, and the audiobook was fantastic, narrated by the same person who does the David Bode trilogy. So overall, I had such a fun time with this and would definitely recommend. So those are all the books that I read in the month of December. Let me know if you've read any of these or what you think about them. And of course, I will leave my Twitter and Instagram linked down below. I will also leave more information about how you can support the Black Lives Matter movement. Of course, subscribe for more bookish content. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.